Hello, BookShark BootCamp. It's your community manager, Jana, and today is Wednesday, November 12th. I can't believe it, but I'm pretty sure Thanksgiving is in like 2 weeks. I do not know where the time has gone. For those of you who are watching from our 2025 boot camp, I hope you're finding your rhythm. You're feeling like you're getting a good understanding of how BookShark's methodologies and instructor guides are working. And for those of you who are watching on our alum boot camp, I hope that you are having a wonderful fall, continuing your homeschool journey with BookShark. Today, my guest is Sharon Miller. Hopefully, you guys have seen her give some wonderful comments throughout our boot camps over the years. She is a veteran homeschool mom who's using BookShark and an advisor for BookShark. She came on in 2020 when everything went remote. We just fell in love with Sharon. I hope that you guys are too, as she is just sharing her wisdom throughout the threads and the posts that you guys, the questions that you ask. Today, we are going to talk about the age-old question of socialization when it comes to homeschool. So, without further ado, let's bring in Sharon. Hey, Sharon.
Hi. Hi, how's it going?
I'm still kind of in awe that it's almost basically the middle of November.
Yes, very much so. It's a shocker at how fast time is just flying by.
I really wish I could just like, I feel like it's the sand, the grain of sand is, or trying to hold water, I think at this point in my life. It's not going
Yes,
to happen.
it's not going to happen. Yeah. I'm holding some sort of slime that I can't quite, yeah, hold on
Mm-hmm.
to at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true.
I do love the fall season for so many reasons. I like that. I don't like that the days get shorter, and yet I do like that it kind of forces us to slow down if you're the type of family that follows the rhythm of the seasons, right? So if you are engaged in all of the things, then you're
Right.
probably not slowing down. But for me and where I'm at in my homeschool journey, which is kind of on the downslide here, with my oldest being a junior in high school, it really does, the change of season does kind of slow down for us, which I appreciate,
Mhm.
especially just to be able to reflect. I know
Mm.
in the past we've talked about October flats, and it is truly a thing. More and more people are talking about it. Did you guys experience any of those October flats this year?
I definitely did. I was definitely kind of in a in a slump, and more for myself than my kids. I feel like I went a little gung ho in the beginning with them, and it took a toll on me. And now in November, I'm seeing how it took a toll on them. So I think pushing a little hard in the beginning, while I had good intentions of being able to take more time off later in the year, um, I think I learned a valuable lesson this year that slow and steady wins the race, and it doesn't matter if you complete at the end, even though I knew that. It doesn't matter how far you get. You just want to do as much as you can. Feasible, that's feasible. And I felt it. I was mentally depleted by mid-October, and I was like, wow, oops. But it's valuable information for next time. And as we continue.
Absolutely. Now tell us, how long have you been homeschooling and what levels have you guys completed so far?
Oh my goodness. We started in 2020, that 2020-2021 year. Um, and so we were the classic pandemic homeschooler. So it's been almost six, it's going into year six, I think that is. But anyway, so I've done A, B, C, D, E, F, and now I'm in G. And I've done all those levels at least twice or a variation thereof, like we did a BC and I did a DE. Um, and yeah, and we're just making our way through. I don't know how far we'll get. I don't know what all we'll do, but everyone's path is different, and I've enjoyed every level. I don't think there's been a level where I've been like, but there's favorite parts and different parts that you do. So it's been a great ride.
Yeah, I'm with you. Having done, I believe I started with B, maybe even C, because I wasn't advised in any way, shape, or form, which is why
Same.
advisors are so like I push advising and please talk to an advisor because if you don't,
Yes.
you don't know what you don't know. But
Yep.
I have done B through world history at some in some
Yeah.
variation or form with my three girls over the years. And yes, there isn't one level where I was like, man, I could have done
Right.
without that. I
Right.
just can't say
Yeah.
enough about
And
the
I have
books and
friends,
the activities.
Right. I have friends and I've talked to customers who have said, I think I might have to skip a level. What level would you recommend skipping? And I was like, ooh, well, I don't recommend skipping any levels because there's something, even levels that I thought weren't as strong or hit as much with my kids, there was still something huge that they took away from it. So it's been amazing. And really, I had someone say once that one of our older advisors that's no longer here, she said, learning happens at every level. And I was like, yep, I learned things in A because I had started my daughter in B because I didn't have an advisor. And so I went back and did A with her later on. And I found that it was great because it gave her confidence and she was doing a lot of more things on her own. And but then I was able to utilize one of the higher levels of language arts, and she caught up to all the holes that I had found working with her at home, and not in the brick and mortar. So it was really beneficial to be able to have the flexibility to go back and forth and fill in the holes.
Yeah. So we're talking to obviously our bootcamp members. They're already sold on Bookshark. Hopefully they're lifelong Booksharkers. But that age-old idea of socialization. When
Mhm.
I was homeschooled back in the dark ages of the 90s, it was something that people had questioned me personally because I did work when I was age appropriate. I started
Mhm.
working and people would be like, "Oh, you homeschool? Like, how do you socialize?" And I would just laugh because here I was in a grocery store saying, "Well, I'm talking to you, right?" And that always just I didn't understand. I think people ask the question and it's like it's almost a automatic response when they hear homeschool. When they hear
Mhm.
homeschool, it's just like a tape rules. How, what about socialization? So now we're in 2025, going into 2026. The pandemic has happened. A lot of people have either homeschooled or schooled at home. Some have chose to stay at home, some have chose to go back.
Mhm.
And we just want to talk about with our boot camp members today some ideas like maybe you
Mhm.
aren't getting socialized right now. I mean,
Right.
it's almost the middle of November and
Mhm.
you've been so head down focused on the curriculum and getting into a rhythm and understanding what's going on, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
That's
now,
amazing.
as you are coming up to the holidays, or maybe feeling like you're in a little bit of a rut and like, did I shower in the past 3 days? I have no idea because that's the reality of it sometimes when you're not
Yep.
leaving your home for specific things. So, as we walk through some of these things about homeschool, what in your experience have people questioned you about? And then, what's a quick response maybe we can give some of our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, it is an age-old question, right? It's one of the first things out of people's mouths the moment you say homeschool. Either that or how do you spend that much time with your kids? Okay, well, that's another whole issue in itself. But I feel like, and I find it surprising that anyone would ask you that question because you're so talkative and so outgoing and friendly that it pigeonholes people so quickly. And it's such a shame because some of the most friendliest kids that my kids have met have been homeschoolers. And and even going to conventions, some of the first, or I should say, some of the best conversations I have are with the kids. The kids will come up to the booth and start looking at a book and they'll ask a question about it, or at one of the lap books or something that we have going on in the booth. And it's so wonderful to see. And I'm like, yeah, we're not all, shut into our homes. Like, and there's so many people that are out there. But something that I go to right away is I was like, have you met my children? Is one of the first things, or, oh, well, here, let me introduce you, and then my student will just take over. But sometimes you do have a shy kid, right? And uh, and that's totally normal as well. But I'll say, well, we have this, and this going on this week, and we're here talking with you. And they're like, oh, wow, well, that's a great point. We don't, where do you find that? And then they'll ask about whatever it is we're doing, whether it be a volunteer thing or, a club that we're going to. So it just depends on who I'm talking to because I don't want to downplay whatever they, do or don't do, but it is often their concern.
Yeah, and it's something that, like I said, sometimes I don't even think it's conscious that people ask that question because it just it doesn't make sense in this day and age. But if you do find yourself more isolated. Either this is
Mm.
your first year of homeschool, so you haven't really found a community yet, or you've been so focused on getting the curriculum and doing it correctly, which we'll have to do a whole nother live about
Yeah.
why we need to get out of that mindset because learning is everywhere in every level.
Mhm.
Maybe we do need to just like talk about basics. If there are families out there who are feeling isolated,
Mhm.
feeling like they are that stereotype of not socializing, my first question would be, are you getting outside? It's such a simple way to get some socialization. And whether that is, if you're getting out daily, maybe you're not leaving your house daily. That's me sometimes, and there is no judgment there. But are
Yeah.
you making a point to get outside and be in a place where there are people? Just being in nature, going for a
Mhm.
walk in the sun. I find that when my husband and I will take like lunch and we'll walk around our neighborhood, you could see the homeschool kids because they're the ones that the weather's good, they're outside. Now, if I
Mhm.
had had littles and I had them walking with us, what a great opportunity to meet other people in the neighborhood who are homeschooling.
Yeah.
Have you guys found some tips and tricks like that of just getting outside?
Definitely. And even we have a park at the end of our street, and we used to be really regular with some of the of our like outdoor time, and we would go out between 10 and 10:30. Um, we would have gotten a chunk of work done in the morning, and then we'd take a good half hour to an hour off, and then have another little bit of time, and then have lunch, and then pretty much be done for the day, depending on what was going on. And during that 10 to 10:30 hour, we would see several people. There was the same guy that would always walk his dogs, and the kids got to know his dogs really well. And but then there was this one lady who showed up every once in a while, and she had three kids. But they were all much younger, like kindergarten and under. And she was thinking about homeschool. She's like, little Billy is supposed to start school next year, and I was thinking about homeschool. Because she asked, she's like, well, you guys aren't in school, and I was like, oh, we homeschool, and we ended up having like the longest chat, and I see her every once in a while around town, still, and we exchange numbers, and it's just amazing what you don't know and what or who's curious and they don't know where to go. I mean, I would not have sought it out prior to 2020, but if I was thinking about it, especially since 2020, more people are curious about it because it's in the news more and people talk about it here and there, uh, and I think just making yourself out, like you said, as simple as just going outside and going to a community park or going to your library and just seeing who else is out there, you'll find so many people that are just out and about.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the library. And it is kind of building a routine because if
Mhm.
you want to kind of see, now granted, you might have to vary your times if you've done it for a couple times and you haven't seen anybody, but the library is a great place that you're going to run
Yeah.
into other homeschool families that
Hmm.
are in your community and you'll be like, oh, we're
Yeah.
going to come back to the library when we talk about a little
Yeah.
bit more about community, which we'll get to in our next point. I do want to say that we've got to remember as we're homeschooling to build in margin for that fun, for that
Hmm.
outing, for getting out of your four walls and not, especially if you're in a region where it's going to start getting cooler and then it's going to get cold and then it's going to get like you can't leave your house for a while.
Yeah.
Take the opportunity now as you're into fall before those harsh winter days come,
Hmm.
kind of make a routine, get out there. We give you permission. If you have to skip something, you have to skip something.
Yeah.
But remember, you do only have 4 days of BookShark. So we
Yeah.
hope that you're utilizing that well, and making the most of the fun. I will
Hmm.
say, looking back at my homeschool experience with my girls and in my own personal experience, we could have had more fun.
Same. And I'm glad that I'm, seeing that and coming to that realization a little earlier because my kids are 11 and 13. And I'm especially now as they're getting older is to realize that, you know what? It's not all do or die. Like not every box needs to be checked. I actually had a small fire to put out this morning because a couple of days ago I made a list for myself and I blocked it out in time, which is something I don't always do. Like, but if I know I have 2 hours, I'm like, all right, what can I allot to what can I allot? And it's a goal. It's not I know that I'm going to stop at 5:45 and I'm going to move to the next thing, but it's a goal. But my daughter saw me doing it, and so she made one. But she made hers much more detailed for the entire day. And she was in tears this morning because she hadn't already fulfilled some of it. And I think it was like while I was losing part of my cool with her, and then I was like, no, it's a great teaching moment. I'm like, sometimes we have to let those plans go, and that is okay. I was like, because you're going to feel better later in the day. You can flip-flop some. I said, show me your list. And we went through it, and I'm like, we can flip-flop some of this, and it's going to be okay, and we'll still get to do this, and we'll still get to do that. And she's like, okay. Like it was a huge thing. So while it's in the moment, it seemed awful, but I think hopefully it was turned out to be a teaching moment. Let's hope.
Well, we're going to check back with you and see how
Yeah,
she's
right?
doing with that list. Sharon, you have over your years have shared with me in our community the types of community that you have built while you and your family have been homeschooling. One of the things that stands out to me the most is the co-op that had you guys do the theater and you did a production, I believe it was last spring, of some Shakespeare, which is just to the point where my heart lies. So tell us a little bit about how you have found community in homeschooling.
Awesome. Yeah, it was actually a couple years ago now. It seems like only yesterday, but also it seems like forever ago. But yeah, we did a Shakespeare show, which was chosen on purpose because there's no royalties to pay with Shakespeare, so which is great. And it can be so modified for almost any age group, depending on what your group of actors are and what their ranges are. And I feel like I have, as much as I am not a big fan of being on Facebook or wasting my time on Facebook, I have found so many wonderful things through Facebook. I have found different groups, I found different clubs, different people that set up different things. And it's been wonderful to find different communities. And if I had, when I started homeschooling, I talked to a young man who was at my work. Because he started working early, as most homeschoolers do. And he started as a bagger and he'd been working his way up. He still works with the company. And I said, "You homeschool." I was like, "Can you tell me a little bit about your experience and what you did?" And he's like, "Oh, I can tell you about homeschool groups and this, that, and the other, and all these things." And I was like, "All right." And one of the pieces of advice this like 18-year-old gave me, he said, don't land with one group right away. He said, take time to taste different groups, find the people you like. And like even the group that you're speaking about, I don't hang out with some of those people anymore. They have their own group and they've gone on and moved on. As your seasons change, you find who you meld with, and then you build your own group from the groups. And oh, this text strand and this text strand. I was like, and we just made a group me, and we have this place where we can all keep in touch with each other. And now we just throw things out and just see, who wants to do them. Which is great that we've kind of built our own group, which is the best way to do it.
Well, and it took time.
Oh yeah,
And that is the part that I think in our immediate gratification society, that's the
totally.
part that's a little bit harder for us. Now,
Yeah.
as we are literature based in our education at this point, we are starting to feel that taking the time and breaking it down and spending
Mm.
the time and slowing down. And that has to also roll over into our socialization. So it will take some time. I went through quickly and kind of thought about a few things. You had mentioned Facebook. I love that Facebook connects us across the nation, across the world, but
Mm.
it also helps connect just our communities. We are in
Mhm.
a Facebook page right here in our neighborhood where I have found a knit club and a book
Oh,
club.
fun.
So those are two things that my Facebook group I've found just locally. They also do like bingo. Now, granted, these are all things that I do without my kids. Again, my kids are gone or older, so it's a little different. But I think I have seen in there who homeschools. Does somebody want to go to the park today? So people are using their Facebook in their communities in that way. If you're not on Facebook, I thought of, well, there's a lot of people who do the same on Nextdoor. So
Hmm.
if you wanted to put out there, hey, you don't have to share details. I mean, hey, I'm a homeschooling mom and I'm going to go to the park this day at this time. Does anybody want to go? The weather's not great. I'm going to go to the library. Does anybody want to go and meet us
Hmm.
at the library?
Yeah.
One thing that we can really share that the library is a great resource for homeschoolers, not just for books, but for meeting spaces. They
Mhm.
will let you put up a flyer and start a chess club. Or I know when we lived in our neighborhood back in Colorado, it was after school, but it was a Lego club. And all you had to do was show up. And it was certain days, and someone would bring all these Legos, and you would just meet up with friends or no friends or make friends, and it would be for like 2 hours, and it would just be a Lego club. And if there's not any of those types of things in your community, then I would encourage you to take the time to start building them out. Even just like
Yeah.
board game hour. I mean, how much I'd go to that.
Yeah, I've met several people that are like, yeah, our library didn't have much, and then we started doing this board club or board game club. Libraries will often do chess clubs. Sometimes I'll see Lego, definitely book clubs or Battle of the Books, things like that. But a lot of those things are still after school times, not anything during the day. And sometimes it just takes talking with a librarian. Usually it's maybe their school liaison that does go into schools, and they're busy a lot of the year, but there are times when you can coordinate with them and they could. I talked with one of our librarians and she pulled some people from the banking world, and they had a whole finance thing, and they started talking about what it is to have a checking account and what to do with finances. And just to kind of break it down and make it a little easier, she did something with local history, talking about our air naval station, which is no longer exists, but that, what it was in the area. And so, I mean, there's all kinds of different things that they are willing to do. And for them, it takes a little bit, but they have a lot of resources. And so if you build it, they will come type of attitude. And sometimes if depending on your group and your library, sometimes you can get some of those things for free. Sometimes they will let you have the room because it's during the day and it's not during a time that anyone else is going to want it. But it took time for me to negotiate that with them. I'm like, I do pay my taxes. I do live in the area. I would like to have this room for free or discounted. And sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. It depends on availability or lots of different things. So, but it does take time to build those connections. But then once you have them, then you always see, Library Rosie or what Librarian Rosie that you'll see her and she'll be like, hi, and she'll know the homeschoolers. And it just takes time to build those relationships. And you have to be
Yeah,
patient, but if you build it,
it's
they will
worth it.
come.
That's
Yeah, it's
right.
worth
It
it.
is worth it. Switching gears into something that's completely cost-free.
Hmm.
One of the avenues I know I didn't look at enough
Hmm.
as a homeschool mom was volunteer. If you don't have community, if there's no one around, if you don't even have a brick and mortar library in your area, there's plenty of places that fall into this category. Where can you take your kids and your students to volunteer? Senior centers are an
Mhm.
amazing place. And maybe it's not like one-on-one or with the actual people, but it's just something that they need, something that
Mhm.
they, have like, oh, we have this need. Okay, great. My kids and I can help. I had a youth group recently contact me and they were talking about what they were getting ready to do was find a family, a house, a yard that had an elderly person who was no longer raking their leaves. And so, can we come rake your leaves for you? And I
Mhm.
had a friend who needed some leaves rake, and she said, "Oh, well, we'll do that on our day." And I said, "No, no, no, no. He's willing to pay. Make sure you guys get paid from this guy, right?" But like, it's that idea of community service, giving back. Those are things that just a single family unit can do without community. And then maybe if other families are asking about it, those might be places where you end up finding people in your community that you weren't even aware that they were there. Volunteering at a food bank. I know one of our advisors, Sarah, she just posted the other day how her and her daughter are volunteering at a food bank in Texas. And it was just things that I didn't think of in the moment.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I have a friend whose their son works with a Meals on Wheels group, and he reached out and he's like, "We're looking for art to pair with for the holidays to give them a little gift to go with it." And so the kids and I did a couple of little crafts that we sent to him, and so to add to that. But I'm sure groups like Meals on Wheels or any of like the in-home nursing care type things that where you could, do art for them or go into a nursing home and like I was thinking something as simple as my son plays the piano really well. Maybe he can come in and play at lunch, or like if you have a piano, or I mean, there's lots of ways to like use your talents to give back to the community, and then who knows where that could lead to.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Having worked in care facilities on and off throughout my adult life, I know that they would jump at the chance to have someone come play for them, even if it's imperfect, even if it's just a practice. They do games.
Yep.
Anytime you can get intergenerational learning happening, intergenerational, even just socialization is like that's the first step. We
Mhm.
are actually going to be having a podcast about intergenerational learning, and I'm super excited to be
That's great.
working on that right now. But there's so much there. There's so much there. Maybe something else that people forget about are just typical social clubs. We've got Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. We've got Heritage Girls and Trail Life. We mentioned Chess Club. There are definitely social clubs that, yes, they're not all going to be homeschoolers, but they are still open to homeschoolers. They're not at all part of necessarily your school district, which is how most people typically find out about these types of things. But you actually were instrumental in creating like a homeschool group for one of these clubs.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. My daughter had been in Girl Scouts through her school in brick and mortar as a kindergartner, and she stayed with the troop for a few years. And then the troop was kind of fizzling out as the girls were getting older, but Julia was kind of like, they aren't doing anything, Mom. And so I learned through the Girl Scout program that they had a Juliet program, which is you could kind of do it on your own, which was great. And we kind of did that alongside the troop. But then some other girls within our little group were like, I want to do it. I want to do it. And I'm like, and then one of the moms stepped out. I was like, that's great, but I didn't want to be in charge. I knew that I had too much of a, I don't know, control issues of like, we're going to do everything. And then I'd be overextended and it'd be bad. So I was glad that somebody else who was a little more laid back took the reins and was got all the paperwork going and formed our own homeschool mixed age troop, which in life we're usually a mixed age group. As I said at work, I was working with an 18-year-old. You're going to be multi-generational in your life settings. So it was wonderful and has been wonderful to have our very own troop. And one of the things that my daughter often said about the troop is like, I would ask her, how are the girls? And she's like, they're fine. I was like, how are the girls? And she's like, they don't always include me because I'm the homeschool kid. And I was like, ooh. So there definitely had been a difference, but I knew that there were groups out there, um, and I just put out some feelers, and I was just grateful that somebody stepped up to lead our group, and we've been able to really enjoy our time. And we're going to go volunteer at Feed My Starving Children next week. So it's been really, really nice.
And then I heard those girls get to go to Great Wolf Lodge
Oh
and
yeah.
have a great time with some of the funds that they have raised for themselves.
Yes, they're very excited and they've worked really hard. Even in their first year, they've been able to do some really fun things. We're going to the Great Wolf Lodge next month, and last month we went to the Harry Potter store, and like they just arranged a lot of fun stuff for us to do, and it was just really, really neat. So, and we took a boat tour downtown. Like it just, we let the girls create a vision board at the beginning of the year, and they all kind of shout out what they want to do, horseback riding, or, and sometimes they have like really lofty goals, like they all want to go to Disney World. And I was like, whoa, 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 you got to sell a lot of cookies to go to Disney World. So let's just take it one step at a time. And so far we just keep moving through that vision board and just show them it's like, yeah, you sell those cookies, you make the money, and you can achieve things.
Well,
So
I
it's
think
fun.
that leads us very well into our last point, which is just taking time to adventure and
Mhm.
find those field trips. Now, I will remind those if this is the first time you've heard this, it's a funny story. And if you've heard it before, roll your eyes again. We were doing level F. I was so excited. We were going to Chicago. They had had the tour of the clay soldiers from China. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'll never get to China, but we can get here and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, they were not interested. We did not get there. I probably just cried, which is fine. So, just, like, reality is you might be disappointed when you plan these big adventures and nobody else is into it. all these years of being married and having children, my twins just turned 20 in October, I have just learned whether they're going to have fun or not, I'm going to have fun. And it
Right.
really has worked out that way. We do have to learn to be flexible. But that being said, there are museums, there are free days, there are adventure passes through your library. Just
Mm.
ask. I mean, there's so many ways. You could call the museum and say, "Hey, I've got a group of homeschoolers. Can we get a school discount?" There's so many different ways that you can do it. It doesn't take too much time, and it really does help your children have these experiences that maybe you got when you went to public school and you got on the bus and it was a long day and all of those things. You
Mm.
can still have that with your kids and it be 1,000 times better because you're there with the people you want to be there with and not the people you have to be there with. So I definitely would say we used to do free day a lot in when we lived in Colorado. And I had friends who were like, that would be the last day on earth that I would go. And I was like, you know what? Actually, if you go like afternoon, there's nobody there. It's kind of busy in the mornings at the zoo or the museums, but it really ended up being great
Mm.
because I never had to feel guilty about how much time we were there because it was free. So as
Yes.
opposed to spending the $50 to $100 to spend the day and then you're stressed out. You're like, we're here for 6 hours to get our money's worth.
Mhm.
And all those things. But I think
Definitely.
the
And
museums and the zoos, those are a great start.
definitely. And even those museums, I've gone just to the website, and sometimes they will either make allotment for homeschool groups, or you can go in through the school program or area, and you can either email the people directly and say, hey, I have a small group of 10, or I have just my family of 3, or whatever it is. And they'll either make an allotment for that, or they will tell you how to go about it or what you'll need to do. Um, I know there's a couple museums in Chicago that will have definitely been very accommodating. I also, we had mentioned earlier that you can do the tours and things of farming groups nearby. We have a farm not far from us that they have a 4-H group that works out of there, but they will do those types of things for homeschool groups if they want to come in, and or Girl Scout troops. And the kids got to milk a cow, which was kind of big for being in the city. And pick up the eggs under the chickens and really get a hands-on feel for what that was like, which was really exciting. Another thing we've done is they set up a geocaching event. Sometimes through parks and recreation, they'll do things like that where it's a larger group of kids that you can do a larger scavenger hunt or geocaching type thing, which can be really fun.
Yeah. We've actually done that when we've been camping through our state park. You can just go in and check in with the rangers, and they'll give you what you need and give you the
Mhm.
coordinates. And so you certainly can do it in a group. You can do it on your own. You can
Yeah.
make your own. I mean, there's just like, it's like the world is your oyster. And again, I think sometimes we get so caught up in the books and the instructor's guide and the schedule. And I love all those things. But we need to remember that learning is an adventure, and these are just simple ways that you can get out there. Government buildings, like
Mm.
this is crazy, but like you call and you're like, "Hey, I want a tour of this," or can I mean the sheriff's office. Now, granted, they're not going to let you bring your kids into the jail,
Right.
but their county buildings. I mean, there is so much that I remember watching a movie from I think the 50s called Who's Mining the Mint, and it was
Ooh.
about a U.S. mint. Super fun, super cute movie if
Yeah.
you're into old movies. But I had always wanted to go to the US Mint in Denver and we never got there. And I know they do tours. It's just things that just factories.
Yeah, we
There's
did a
the
chocolate factory. That was really fun.
yeah, and there's like candy factories, there's tea factories,
Mm.
there's lots of different things that farms if you're rural or go into the if you're going to go into the city, just it's I just think there's so many things that we just forget about, we don't think about
Hmm.
when we can have these small little day trips with our kids. What a fun memory. They're going to be like, "Oh yeah, even if it doesn't apply to what you guys are specifically learning, don't I wouldn't get too hung up on that part because
Right.
like I did and then nobody wanted to do it anyways and so I was crushed." One
All
other
been
thing,
there. I'm
yeah.
more excited about it than they are.
Of course, everyone always ends up having fun. It's like, but
Right.
then by that time, I'm irritated because I've used all my energy to get everybody to the point that they're bought into it. And, anyways, that's another episode. Another thing I think I know I overlooked for a long time was you'd mentioned parks and recs. There's
Mhm.
swimming, there's basketball, there's
Yeah.
volleyball, there are scavenger hunts, there's hikes, there's trail cleaning up days.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Oh
so
yeah.
many things that we kind of get tunnel vision,
Hmm.
but we're going into holidays. Just hope that some of these things are going to resonate with you and you're going to figure out what will work for you and your family. But you're going to be able to say when somebody comes up to you and says, however, do they socialize? You'll be like,
Hmm.
however, do we have time to stay home in school?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny that I just something you mentioned earlier with trying to test out different homeschool groups and finding the people and how it takes time. Just that process of having to introduce yourself to a group more than once. Sometimes you look at, like a military family where they have to go to different schools and throughout their entire career. So they're introducing themselves all the time. It can be hard, but it also gives you some resilience of knowing who you are, right? And I feel like there's a strength in having to do it more than once. Like people that are in the same school district over their entire lifespan, they've grown up with those same kids in their same grade, maybe in different classrooms, but from kindergarten all the way through senior year. So they've known some of those people there that whole time. And while people come and go and you'll have to introduce yourself, it's still you kind of know who you're with every year. To not know who you're with every other week is kind of neat. It's like we used to, oh, the kids and I call like park friends. Like you'll make a friend and then you're like, oh, but I'm leaving. We just made a friend. I don't want to go yet. And it's like, well, those are park friends. Sometimes they come and go. Sometimes you'll see them at the same time. Sometimes you won't. And I bring this all to, I say this all to bring it back to, or to bring it forward to when you go off to college. I have a friend who she just dropped her last daughter off at college and she is having a hard time making friends. And I was like, that's so interesting that someone who's been and succeeded throughout her high school career and was very outgoing and very well versed and very active. But now she's on her own and she's having a hard time. So much that the teachers have been like, you're having a hard time making friends, aren't you? And she's like, yes. And it's like, wow, that the teacher noticed. And I think that someone who is homeschooled, not to say there's pros and cons to everything and everyone does what's best for their family, but I was like, I wonder if she had, been homeschooled, how would that look different? Would that person be more confident in making friends and stepping outside their comfort zone because they'd been had to do it so many times, or not? So I think it's a curious way to look at things from the other side.
Yeah, yeah. Sharon, thank you so much. It's been so much fun, as always, when you come on and share what's going on in your life and encourage homeschooling families to just keep at it, keep remembering, keep the goal in mind, know that the world is our oyster and that we're in charge and we love it.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Jana. It's great.
All right, you guys, next week is our live Q&A. So make sure if you have any questions, either about socialization or anything homeschool, BookShark related, you get those posted so we can get them answered next week. Hope you have a fabulous week. Until next time, bye.